Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first session this morning in the Resilience Hub, a grande première to have a humanitarian hub. No, sorry, I said Resilience Hub. This is a humanitarian hub that was hosted by the Resilience Hub. And we have the pleasure, today is the Agriculture and Food Day, thematic day here at COP29. We have the pleasure to have this first event and conversation around addressing climate loss and damage in agri-food systems, looking at early warning systems, action, and humanitarian action for building resilience, and going to also the climate action and the synergies. We are extremely pleased to be together and to welcome with us Esther Lodou, who is going to kick us and ground us in agri-food system. Esther Lodou is a senior field staff from the Gaston Garden in association in Salmon Island. She came all the way to the COP, and she's going to really take us in agriculture livelihoods and what is happening, what is being done in her island. Esther, you have the floor.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Esther Londo. I will be representing Custom Garden Association, and today I will be speaking on the activity my organization Custom Garden is doing and addressing climate loss damage in agro-food system. And humanitarian action in building resiliency in Solomon Island. Now, building local resiliency food system is a way forward in adopting climate change in agriculture. Custom Garden is local NGOs and we promote organic practices in Solomon Island. Some of you didn't know where Solomon Island is. Solomon Islands is small island. It's not a country. I say just an island. We live in the Pacific. There are so many islands in the Solomon Islands. We live far away from Pacific Island. Most community we work with are affected by climate change. Like one is sea level rise, another one is flooding, like we have landslide, and also we have earthquake, cyclone. We have dry season for a long time, and the crops didn't grow, and also we have wet season, and we have problem with farming system. Okay, when you can see on the slide, that is how we save our own seed. That is Custom Garden Association, a small backyard garden. Custom Garden Association is a national promote food security in healthy living. Formed in 1995 and formally registered as a NGOs in 2001 under Charitable Act. Our key philosophy is healthy soil, healthy garden, healthy crops and food, healthy family, and also healthy nation. Our mission is promoting sustainable, healthy living by strengthening village-based food security in Solomon Island using participatory, practical, grassroots approach that enable village people to examine, understand, develop, appreciate, and welcome their own solution, improving household food security and a livelihood through village-based in organic farming. Custom Garden we have a network in planting material that we call PMN. PMN is like one of the division in Custom Garden, which is I am the one who coordinate the PMN. PMN is like a planting material network, aims to support farmers throughout the production and distribution of local planting material, such as seed, conservation of crops, diversity. Sharing material and technical skills is strongly encouraged. Custom Garden, that is the map of Solomon Island. We work with those islands. We have 9 provinces in the Solomon Islands. And then we have partners all over the Solomon Islands. You can see those are our partners in the Custom Garden Association. What we do, we establish community garden. When we have the disaster, we do training in the community. So we establish community garden where we we collect our planting material, which is they base in like in disaster, in dry season, we can collect planting material and we do bulking on that community garden. And also we have we protect our forestry because we have food in the forest, like we have local yams. When disaster happen, no, we haven't grow any crops, all the crops are damaged. We have to harvest our food in the forest. And also we have, we protect our seas, and then we have collect food from the seas. And also we protect mangrove, we have food from the mangroves. That is one of our collecting material. We collect yam, pana, taro, the planting material, and then we bulk them in the community garden after that one, and then we distribute to the farmers also. That is the yam. We distribute to the farmers, so the farmers, they can do their own farming, and then do like labeling the crops they plant, what time they plant, what time they will harvest. We engage young people so that they can establish community nursery. You can see on the picture, they are the youth at work in Honiara. We train them how to do nurseries. And then they have to manage their nursery after we train them. And then the farmers learn to save their own seed. We train the farmers to save their own seed so they can sell this after they dry the seed package. They can sell their seed, and also they can save their own seed for next plant. And also if we have disaster, Custom Garden have a seed storage, so we can distribute to the farmers when whatever disaster happens. That is, we train the women, how can they save their own seed, and also the young people, so that they can have the knowledge to save their own local seeds. That is the seed saving. And that is where we store our seeds. So we have a lot of NGOs when they want to do some training or distribution in the communities. They have to come to Custom Garden, and then sometimes they pay. Sometimes if Custom Garden have a program of training, we have to distribute the seeds to the farmers. Yeah, we train farmers to do local material, to do their like germination seed or nurseries. We use bamboo stick, and also we use chicha leaf instead of polybag, because from the community they have no money to buy polybag, and it's too far from the rural places to Honiara to pay polybag. So Custom Garden treat them in local ways, how they can plant their own plant. And then after we establish the community garden, then we train the farmers so they can establish their own family one. The first one, the community garden, is for the community. Yeah, the home garden is like family one. So everyone have material to plant, and they can the women can cook balanced diet because they have so many varieties of food in their own garden. And then if they build a garden in the village, they have to make fence. Yeah, you can see there's a local material they do as a fencing of their backyard garden in the village. This is one of our setup. This is world fish area. Yeah, that is an island from Gizo. You can see that's no proper soil, but we bring soil from mainland, and then we teach them how to collect market waste. It's another thing we do, that we go collect market waste, and then we fill up the box, and then we put the soil, and then we plant. So now they didn't find hard to go to the market to pay vegetable, but they have own vegetable garden in Nusa Tupe. That's for world fish. And then we encourage farmers, if they after they harvest, we train them not to bend the grain, the dry grass, but we train them to put back in the garden so that it can improve the soil. We train the farmers to do mulching, because if it's flooding, yeah, the ground is too dry. So we train the farmers to use sack bag and also the grass to mulch the farm, because if the sun hit the soil and it's hot, and it will cause damage to the plant, to the crops. So we encourage the farmers to do mulching on the surface of that soil. We encourage farmers to millennium tillage, like using machine or using tools to cultivate the soil. Sometimes we disturb the soil so the plant cannot grow. So we train the farmers to use sticks, not the digging bar, not the iron, but the sticks. So they can plant their crops with the sticks and the local material. Yeah, we train farmers like cover crop, green manure for soil improvement, like mukuna bean, sweet potato, pumpkin. They are the cover crops, so you can plant in the garden so that it improves the soil. And we do intercropping, like some farmers didn't have skills and knowledge to plant. They plant a sweet potato, and after they harvest, they still plant a sweet potato again. But in intercropping, we have knowledge and skills. After you plant corn, you can plant sweet potato, and it's like intercropping system. And also farmers, we exchange visit. Yeah, we tell the community go to another farmers or another island, so they can learn more skills and knowledge on other farmers' garden. We do diversity fair, so that after we do training, the farmers do their own home garden, and then we arrange that everyone should bring their own crops, so that they can exchange planting material, and also they can sell their own product or produce also. Yeah, we have arranged like on this side, that's from Western Province, we arrange a diversity fair. We invite USP from Fiji, and also Taiwanese staff, and from Ministry for Agriculture. They can come and witness, and also they can share skills and knowledge to the farmers that were gathered that day. We have a big problem with pest and disease. We have a big problem with the pest and disease, so we use a local plant to not to kill the insect, but just to relieve the plant, and to help the plant grow. We have chicken fence to help our garden. Like we didn't use fertilizer, no chemicals. We are promoting organic, so we use chicken manure and bed manure. And also we have fingery and the poultry. And also we have compost. We collect all the rubbish, we compost it, and then we put back in the garden like our fertilizer. And also we arrange diversity fair workshop and conferences. That is the time we make awareness with the climate change. How can the plant grow with how can the plant grow when it's too dry or it's too wet, or when the cyclone happen? Custom Garden is preparing to help our farmers. And also we have breadfruit for the food process, like chips. It's like a food security, like tomato. They are the one who grows most of the breadfruit. And also we want food process with the women. And also we have different types of recipe. And finally, Custom Garden have 7,000 farmers throughout the Solomon Islands. We have network with the farmers throughout the Solomon Islands, 7,000. And we have training manuals, like this is our training manual for disaster. Training manual for disaster recovery. This is what we done when there's a big flood, a life lost in Honiara. So we think that, we have to make a training manual. So this is our training manual for Custom Garden. So if any disaster happens, we can use this manual to do things to help those farmers we work with. I think that's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Esther, you have been grounding us in what is agriculture livelihoods, from production to processing to even consumption, to even storing seeds and multiplying seeds for the next season. This is just amazing. You are the leader. You are really showing the way, taking care of the land, of the soil, of bringing the agroforestry, protecting the resources, using plant-based derived pesticides, and so on. This is really a very, very full picture. Thank you very much for this, and how when we talk about loss and damage, this is all this that is affected. It's not only one little part or another one. This is all that type of livelihoods, from the soil to the food that is coming to the plate. Thank you, Esther, for really kicking us off on this work. And now I'd like to welcome our other speaker. Maybe I'll need to, the next slide. Esther, if you can give me the clicker. Yes, I'll ask our next speaker to continue and tell us. I think, Rosario, you are my next speaker. You are program coordinator at the International Center for Climate Change and Development, ICAD, based in Bangladesh. And you also have this very deep, excellent knowledge of the fieldwork, of the farmers, and working on the whole range of adaptation, resilience, and loss and damage measures. Could you share with us, from what you heard from Esther, can you share your perspective, please?
Thank you, Sylvie. A very good morning to you all. And thank you for being with us today in this session. So as Sylvie has mentioned, I'm Savio Rosario. I work at the International Center for Climate Change and Development. We are based in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So let me just begin with some stories that comes from my field experience. So in 2023, there was a news on a very prominent daily, which says like 2 indigenous farmers committed suicide, and the reason of their suicide was because they couldn't just irrigate their farms during the dry season. And this is something not new in our country, because if you look at the geography of our country, it might be a very small country, but climate in a climate vulnerable way, it is very diverse, because each of the region has its own climate vulnerability. So the case study that I just mentioned it comes from the northwestern side of the country, which also happens to be the agricultural hub of the country. So I would like to keep a question for all the audience. Who should we blame here? Is it the climate or is it the governance system? Because these farmers were supposed to get money or lend money from the local authorities to irrigate the farm during this dry season. So this is one case. Let me take you to another side of our country, that is the northeastern side of the country, where we totally witness a reverse scenario where we have so much flood. So it also happens to be like the flood-prone area, the flash flood-prone area, and we share a common border there with our neighboring country. But the problem is, each and every year we do witness flash flood, and that region happens to be like it. From that region, we have 18% of rice production of the entire country. So this year, in 2024, we witnessed a transboundary flood, and it happened in 11 districts, affecting millions. And the problem was there, right after the flood, there was immediate food crisis, and there was an emergency for the people there. So the reason I'm putting all this together is loss and damage is something very irreversible, and the people who are there within the communities are being the people who are being affected, right? And I would totally agree with Esther here, because we saw a very beautiful presentation from Iran and what they're doing in the Solomon Islands. In Bangladesh, we have very good practices. However, there is problem within the governance system. And when I talk about the governance system, it should not only be the intergovernmental issues, it can also be the intra-governmental issues. Because as we can see from today's headline, it is something on the early warning systems, right? And Bangladesh, we are living in the downstream country. We share 57 transboundary rivers with our neighbor. So there needs to be some sort of coordination in terms of early warning system, because whenever there is a monsoon, when we don't need water for our fields, for the irrigation, we receive a lot of water because there are dams being built in the upstream region. And when we do really need water, the lands are all dry. So these are some sort of intra-ministerial issues that needs to be highlighted. The second thing that comes up from my experience, as my role is kind of like, I do work with the community a lot, and also I deal with the policy level people, the policy influencers. So what I understand is there remains a very big gap in sort of disseminating the knowledge. We do have early warning system within our country, but the question remains whether these farmers, the producers, are receiving the early warning systems on time, and whether they are understanding this early warning system. That is also a key question. So these are some facts that comes from my experience. Another thing I would like to highlight, as Esther was presenting in her slides, that it is not only the farmers or the producers are being affected, but when we are talking about this entire food system, it also includes the intermediaries, the wholesale producers, or the people who are working in this in the second line, and also at the very last, the consumers themselves, because each and every action at every stakeholder level influences the entire system. So when we're talking about loss and damage, we should not only focus at the producer's level, but what is the impact of climate change in every stakeholder's perception. For example, the intermediaries, they're purchasing this products from the producers. But the one key element here is the transportation. So when there is a disaster, the second stakeholders, the intermediaries, the wholesalers, they can't get proper access to the producers to receive those products and sell them in the wholesale market. So there remains a big challenge. And also, let me give you another story from Bangladesh. Back in 2017, 2018, we had a bumper harvest of potatoes. But as we lack of several infrastructure, for example, cold storage facilities, we couldn't keep all these materials, all those dry raw materials, these perishable goods, for a long time. So what happened was the farmers, they were compelled to dispose many of their harvested crops. So these are the places where I would recommend, and I always talk whenever I go in a platform, that these are the places where we can intervene, where the private sector can also come in and tag with the public sector, and there can be a public-private partnership. So I will end there, and I will be happy if we can have like some bilateral conversations later, and I will stop there. Thank you.
Savio, thank you. Extremely good examples from the drought to the flood, and because really climate change adaptation and resilience is all about water, too much or too little. Yes, there's also a bit about the temperature, but it's really the water that is putting us in great difficulty. And you've focused very well on early warning systems and how can these be actionable along the whole food value chain. And we have our expert here, Mary Gisinji, agrometeorologist from Kenya Meteorological Services, which is a pleasure to have you with us, Mary. And we've been working together with you in Kenya and with the WMO also on a very interesting project that is really going the last mile. Mary, would you like to share with us your insight, your expertise on these early warning systems that make sense for the person on the ground, for the farming communities? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I work in Kenya as an agrometeorologist, but first I'll give an overall mandate of the National Meteorological Services within our region. So the main mandate for our services is to give timely and meaningful early warning weather and climate information for safety of life, protection of property, and conservation of environment. So by this, I want to point out that the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services are the single and authoritative voice and the source of information on severe weather and extreme events. That was done by the convention by WMO. So we always warn our users that if they get information from other sources, it's up to them. So we are only the single authoritative voice to give early warnings. Then the National Hydrometeorological Services have various functions. Among them, we have the mandate to do data collection and monitoring. That is to carry out observations within the region. Then carry out data processing, analysis, and finally forecasting. Then the data exchange is normally done within nationally, regionally, and international. Then after the forecast, we do dissemination of the early warnings. That is together with the advisories, alerts for severe weather and extreme climate events. And the mode of communication is that we put this information on our website. We also have the social media tools like the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now we have the famous X space. We are also trying to utilize that. So the common products that we normally give is the 24 daily forecast. That's the daily forecast, weekly forecast. Then it's followed by the monthly and also the seasonal. So in our region, we have 3 seasons in a year. The first season is for March, April, May. Then we have the June, July, August. And the last one is October, November, December. So we make sure we give that information, and there is good lead time, whereby there is 1 month before the season, the start of the season. So this information is disseminated to the users, who include the policymakers and the general public, also the specialized economic sectors, and also the aviation industry, marine services, but most of it all is given to the application services. That is the agrometeorological departments, hydrometeorological, and also the biometeorological departments who have to give information about the occurrence of diseases and so forth. So now why do we have to give the weather products? We have to give the products to the public to make informal decisions about day-to-day activities. We also give this early warning to warn people of extreme weather to mitigate the impacts, like when the floods are about to occur. The people should move from to the high ground areas. If it's about landslides, they have to move away from those areas which are affected in good time. And we also give this information to the policymakers, our government, so that they can plan how to help the people to mitigate, to not to cause losses, and also to our stakeholders like the Red Cross, the National Disaster Management Services, so that now they can also assist the government to help the people. So now I'll zero in on agrometeorological services, whereby we work with the agriculture and food security sector, whereby we normally produce forecast or bulletins on 10 days, or we do the 10 days bulletin throughout the year. So this information is disseminated, as I said, through the website. We also use the social media, including the text messages, and like the project we have been carrying on with the World Meteorological Organization, where we were given resources by the Adaptation Fund. We go to the ground so that we can meet the farmers face to face, and then interact with them and give them advisories. We also use the media, so the radio. We have the local FM radios, which again disseminate the forecast by using the local languages, so that it is more understandable to the farmers and to those who are on the ground. And this one, we advised the communities to form farmers groups. So when they are in groups, they will be able to advise one another, and it is easy to spread information to a larger community using the small groups. So with that, we also do capacity building. We advise them on what measures should they take, like water harvesting, both from the service runoff and from the rooftops, so that they can use during the dry period. They also, because of the limitation or the way the farms, they are too extensive, but they can't use all the whole part of the farm. They use small gardens, what we call the kitchen gardens, where they can keep on irrigating the vegetables, and they will have them all the year round. Then we also advise them on how to keep those who are doing livestock, to keep small size or herds of livestock which are manageable, so that when they take hay, they can stock and use it during the dry period. Or we also advise them to do what we call diversification or to diversify their farming, to plant different varieties, so that if one crop fails, the other one can do, and they will be all food secure throughout the year. So, and then you also work with the local government, so that they assist the communities to dig or to do what we call the boreholes, because the rainfall days are very few. So when the rain is not there, they can use the water from the borehole. But there's a challenge from that because the water is very salty. So in a way, they have to find a way of how to purify that water. So the farmers cannot do it themselves. They have to rely on the local government. Yeah. So I think that's what I have. But the shorter, our forecast for the short period are quite helpful, because they allow the farmers to do what we call the farm management about when to weed, when to spray or to apply pesticides, and also the time for harvesting. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Mary, thank you.
Yes.
This is absolutely excellent, because you've been taking us on early warnings, which is not just announcing, oh, there's a flood, oh, there's a drought coming. It's the early warning that is driving action, decision making, that is really helping the people on the ground to understand the risks, monitor these, and take actions by themselves. This is really the critical element about climate resilience and adaptation. And this information and the various type of advisories, including what you said, local radio, local language, some of the concrete action. This is really a model. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. And that is taking us to, well, from Kenya back to the Pacific. We have Pasha Carruthers with us from the Pacific community. And Pasha, if you could tell us from your island, but also your regional perspective, some of the innovation or some of your perspective on for managing the wide range of climate risk and impacts in the region linked to this funds for responding to loss and damage in agri-food systems. Thank you, Pasha.
Thank you. As mentioned, my name is Pasha Carruthers. I'm the Loss and Damage Advisor with the Pacific Community. It's a regional organization that focuses on scientific and technical research and serves 22 member countries and territories around the Pacific. I wanted to build on from what Esther's work in the Solomon Islands with the custom farming and the seed production. One of the things that you asked about innovative approaches is at SPC we have the Pacific Center for Crops and Trees, and it's doing a range of work that's very pertinent for addressing loss and damage in agri-food systems. First of all, it's got a genetic database with over 2,000 species of plants in it from around the region. Countries nominate the plants that they want to put into that system, so it's often the most tasty varieties and so forth. But it's also, we do work on virus testing and drought resilience and flood resilience for things like bananas, taro, yams, the traditional foods of the Pacific. And we even go so far as to pre-position, similar to what the custom farming is, for post-disaster, sending crops out so that they can replant as soon as possible afterwards. And as we know, the risk of more intense cyclones compounded by the saltwater intrusion and sea level rise means that overtopping is a frequent issue. In places like Puka Puka, I'm from the Cook Islands originally, but I live in Fiji for work. They had a storm surge associated not even with a cyclone, just a storm surge, and it overtopped the island. Traditional taro fields, which is mainly grown by women, and they then it took 9 months for that taro fields to recover to be able to grow taro and produce taro again, due to rainfall flushing out the saline, the salt spray. So, and in terms of early warning systems, we're looking a lot at things like Digital Earth Pacific and 3D modeling using LiDAR and detailed imagery that helps us get right down to the water lenses. And we really need to scale this up regionally. So countries have seen the work we've done in Tuvalu and Republic of Marshall Islands, and they want to replicate it. It's very expensive to do this. If you have an opportunity, we do have the 3D model here at Moana Pavilion, I believe. So you can have a look at it. But then we're also doing a lot of work on traditional knowledge, so not just the preferred taste testing, the best kind of taro and things like that to preserve and regenerate, but things like awareness and training modules with farmers. There's things like, we know that if we cut back the cassava just before a cyclone warning, or maniota, or arrowroot, whatever you choose to call it, it will regenerate very quickly post-cyclone. So, and if we're going to be facing more of them, we need to make sure that the whole of the Pacific knows that. Some farmers do, but newer farmers might not. Home gardeners might not be so aware, so there's a lot of outreach to be done. And then it's important that these are linked to programmatic approaches in country, not just like sort of piecemeal pilots and things like that. So, one of the things is the Pacific Resilience Facility is looking at, for example, national insurance funds or channeling loss and damage funding into national systems so that they can be supported in a longer than a 3-year project kind of thing, because that's really an issue, I think, when you've got such remote islands and challenges in getting out to do the work in country, that we need to make sure it's over the longer term. Because the biggest example to me of loss and damage is once you lose an aquifer to sea level rise. That's clear loss, right? But before that, you've got increasing salinization of the coastlines, and long before islands go underwater, their coconuts won't be able to grow. And as you know, we call coconut the tree of life in the Pacific. So it's already happening. You can see it along a lot of coastlines, but it's a real issue. And I think the more we do the risk assessments and the work with farmers, and I just wanted to touch on Mary's comments about the hydrometeorological services. They're very key, but what we find with island environments is there's so many microclimates that it's really important to work with the farmers because they know what stronger winds mean for one side of the island or for their particular section of land. But it is changing, so we need to work with them to make sure that they understand why it's changing and maybe some of the options to deal with that. So I'll leave it there. I've got a few other things, but we're one of the most under-insurance regions in the world, and we're looking at things like micro-insurance for farmers that could be supported through national funds because it's not feasible for private sector engagement. There's already so much loss in the sector, so any risk-averse insurance company wouldn't touch it, but governments are going to have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Pasha. Thank you, Pasha. You touched on a lot of different points, from the 3D modeling, which I'd like to learn more about it, to the traditional knowledge, the gene banks, and then giving us this very concrete example, because we didn't talk so much about water, but the very big risk and loss of for aquifer and sea level rise, not talking before the salinization of the soil. It's a life threatening situation. No water, no life, no farming, no food. With this, I don't know if we have. Let me check if we have any questions from the floor. Yes, we have 10 minutes more. What I really think we've covered a lot of ground on the loss and damage and the link to the disasters. I've heard in one other session on loss and damage, a woman representative from Vanuatu who was saying that she's dealing with communities who, one woman leader family, the house was destroyed and she did not have the courage to rebuild her house because she knew that it would be destroyed probably with the next storm. This is maybe an element we didn't really discuss on the house or the infrastructure, but it's also a very important part of the picture, and on both the economic and non-economic dimension of these disasters and extreme events. That is going to be looked at for the new fund for responding to loss and damage. If there is any question from the audience, we can take some, or otherwise we will continue the conversation. Maybe Mary, before you want to close us, if you have any other question or point that you want to ask the panelists, you're welcome. Otherwise, we're very happy to hear, Mary, from you, the second Mary that didn't speak yet, the Senior Climate Policy Advisor from IFRC. We're working very closely with you in IFRC, and your leading role with this large movement with the volunteers on the ground that really understand very well both the humanitarian development dimension of the climate crisis. And so with this, Mary, if you would like to take us to a bit of your work and the perspective on both the humanitarian action and the climate actions in relation to adaptation and loss and damage. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks very much, and lovely to be on this panel and with another esteemed Miri as well. I would love to look at this manual that I'm seeing in front of me, which looks really fantastic. So hopefully I can do that afterwards. I mean, to try and summarise, I think the discussion and maybe some of the points I think that are pertinent to this COP and going forward around loss and damage finance, how we can work in a kind of coherent, coordinated way and address some of the gaps. I'll maybe try to provide some perspectives on that. But I think we've heard some very clear and concrete solutions, action on the ground from, really livelihood support right the way across the system. Incredible example from the Solomon Islands around the kind of level and detail of work you're doing at the community level, the importance of early warning, early action, both in terms of investment in warning systems, but critically across the panel about the need to get that down to the community level. And that's where IFRC and the network of Red Cross, Red Crescent national societies has been really kind of strongly speaking about this at every opportunity at this COP and for the last number, is around scaling up early warning, early action systems, the need to invest both in the warnings, but also for that to get right down to the community level. For IFRC, we work as an auxiliary to government, working across 191 countries, working on disaster risk reduction, climate adaptation. We are a network of over 16 million, 16 million volunteers. And so we're working day in, day out around how best to prepare. We're there to respond, but then critically to recover. And I think in trying to contextualize this within the loss and damage discussion, and maybe some questions to leave us with around how do we kind of take some of this learning, action, and maybe gaps in the system forward. I want to maybe just share a few thoughts around kind of key points that we may want to consider. I think the first is around, as we're 1 year on now from the gavel of the Loss and Damage Fund. We've had last week the paperwork signed to set up the new FIF, and very much the new modalities will be looked at over the next few months. The board meeting, I believe, the first week of December, where that will start to be discussed. So I think it's really important that conversations like these feed in very practical solutions. First, around access. So are we thinking about accessing funds in a different way? I think firstly, we can't rely on a sort of a trickle-down system and policy that we've had with other climate funds. So what are the opportunities to be able to think about different financial mechanisms and modalities which are currently in place, which mean that there's effective access to the SIDS, that there's effective access where climate finance is struggling to reach, and that we're thinking about this from the kind of the community level back. I was in a panel a couple of days ago on loss and damage, and we were just talking about completely kind of flipping the paradigm. If you're thinking about good development, good humanitarian programming and projects, you're thinking about what's the impact to start with. And so I think pushing with some of the kind of solutions and ideas on this panel is, I think, first message is around getting access right and taking learnings and models from here around how is finance flowing and how can we think creatively about that. I think the second is around timing and how are we responding to loss and damage in a way that considers questions about pre-positioning, that thinks about anticipatory action, that thinks about being able to act ahead. And that's not to say that we don't need to act much further upstream in terms of mitigation adaptation, but I think how we're defining what does good responses to loss and damage look like. I think we need to be thinking from a justice perspective. Is it okay to wait until a disaster strikes, or should we be thinking about the what can be done in terms of contingency planning, pre-positioning of supplies, and to be able to act fast to both save lives, reduce livelihood impacts, and to make sure that communities are supported to recover. The third thing I would say is around targeting and the inclusion of community groups and local volunteers as well to support in that process, linked again to this question of accessibility. And the kind of fourth point I would make is around the need for a comprehensive approach and a programmatic approach. We've been hearing that a lot within some of the Loss and Damage Board meetings, but I think to the point of what I could imagine is written in this beautiful manual that sits in front of us is about saying this is a cycle. We are not dealing with things in isolation, and we should push against the risk of within setting up new funds and finance mechanisms and markers, I'm sure, that will come down the line, that we're not putting in place another kind of silo which becomes very difficult to overcome in terms of like what actually do we mean by this. And so I think thinking about that kind of comprehensive response, thinking about how can we invest in a way that builds resilience post-recovery, and I think with those other pieces in mind around access, timing and targeting, to be able to make sure that we reach the community level and try to do this differently. I think the next few months will be critical in terms of the access modality discussion, and I'm sure there are many conversations from the humanitarian hub as well as the resilience hub, which was here before, I think, which could provide kind of a rich basis for negotiators and for decision makers to support governments in this. I think incredible task, but also an opportunity that needs to be seized in terms of doing things differently.
Mary, thank you very much. Taking us on this conversation, really, that we have to have many more conversation. And I'd like us to remember that when you're talking about loss and damage, we don't think only about the post-event situation, but we connect it to the livelihoods and the support that Mary illustrated very nicely, but also Savio and Pasha and our other Mary on the early warning system. This is very important for shifting the thinking and not isolating the phase of responding, humanitarian action, responding, and as just one moment, but seeing that now with climate change, one drought is very quickly followed by the next extreme flood or drought, and there's very little time in between. So there is that time for recovery. It's not probably even there. So there's this cascading and this continuing of events. So we really have to look at this continuum of action, investing in long-term adaptation and resilience, together with all the measures that include the humanitarian action, the early warning systems, around really this portfolio of solution, we do really address the timing, the targeting, and the comprehensive programmatic multi-climate risk management approaches, which is really all shocks and stresses, because when you look at sea level rise, it's perceived as a stress. But in the Pacific region, once the soil or the ground or some of the territory is lost, it's a shock. You have to move. It's absolutely dramatic. So I think this is a very, very informative, excellent discussion. It's taking us to the hour already. I wish we had more time to go more into conversation. This is the constraint we have. We have 1 hour. I think our pitch is clear. Let's keep on working together and for a good articulation between what we call humanitarian action and climate action. Humanitarian action being part of the climate action and being here at this COP today and to continue together for serving the most vulnerable communities that are really leading the way. Thank you very much, everyone.